Welcome everyone to Integrating Web Forms with Claris FileMaker. It's great to see everyone joining us today. Let's start with some quick introductions. My name is Maria Thompson. I'm the Digital Marketing Specialist at DB Services. I will be moderating today's webinar and guiding our Q&A session at the end. I'll also be popping in with some polls throughout the presentation, so be on the lookout for those. And Andrew, you can go ahead and go to the next slide for me. Awesome. Okay, so just a little bit about DB Services. We are a Claris Platinum partner, and we've been the FileMaker Growth Partner of the Year for the past 7 years. We've worked with hundreds of clients of all sizes to develop efficient, low-code custom apps. Our mission is to make organizations more efficient and effective through digital transformations while offering superior service and exceptional expertise. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Andrew.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria. A little bit about myself. My name is Andrew Bosworth. I'll be the presenter today. I've been at DB Services for 6 or 7 years now. I've lived in a lot of places, 7 countries, moved around a lot as a child. Currently, I'm based in a small town called Nyack, New York. It's in the commuter zone outside the city. I recently got engaged in July. I've been just finished writing personalized save the dates and sent all those out. I hope I don't have to do that again. That was a lot of work. And I have a cat. So here's your obligatory cat picture. Her name's Minerva. She's adorable, but a handful. Moving on. Today's agenda. So we're going to basically be going over what is a web form. Hopefully everyone has a vague understanding or idea of what that is and what web forms can do with FileMaker. So we're basically going over, and there will be demos of the four major ways of implementing FileMaker as a platform with these different 4 platforms, and what the pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses of each of these 4s are. So what I have, WebDirect, it's going to be one of the 4. Claris Studio, probably a lesser known one, but figured we'd cover it anyway. It's relatively new. Third-party form builder software, so there's a lot of those. We'll talk about hopefully a lot more of those later on. And then lastly, a custom web. So this is like building your own website kind of thing. Following all those, we will have a demo. All right, so from here, we have our first poll. Is your FileMaker application currently integrated with a web form? Maria should send out a poll right now, and in a couple slides, we'll try to read off the results, kind of have an understanding of who has already integrated with a web form already. All right, moving on. What is a web form? So most people probably do have an idea of what a web form is. The definition we have is a means of collecting data online to consolidate information for a specified goal. So just to give you guys an idea, here's some examples that we compiled, like making a reservation for a restaurant, show, whatever. You got to fill in the web form, time, date, number of people, that sort of thing. Surveys, if you've ever used the service online, a lot of these will send you a survey at the end to ask you how they did. Onboarding any employees, name, birth date, social security, that sort of thing. Usually if you did it online, it's probably a web form. Prospective students, so if you're doing the Common App, applying for stuff online, for colleges and whatnot. Lead generation, so if you do any sort of sales and you're generating leads, a lot of those come through forms. Registering for a webinar, so the fact that you're here today probably means you filled out a form to get here, and many, many, many others. So the power of the web form. The web form has been around since as long as the internet, more or less, and it is a very powerful tool. So these are some of the strengths that a web form has to offer. So it collects data very efficiently. Basically, you can set out 4 or 5 fields that you need to collect data from, and just those 4 or 5 fields. So it's very efficient at gathering that information. You can maintain clean data entry. Like I said, if you only need to add fields for the information you need to gather. Improved user experience, accessibility, and convenience. You can just send it in an email. It's a link. People know what a form is. They've used it many, many times before. Um, you can offload data entry on other people. So instead of someone calling you over the phone to place an order, you can do it through a web form. So your staff is not going to be over encumbered with doing a lot of over the phone data entry. Can be used to track metrics. Maybe you'll notice that a lot of your web forms are being submitted from a specific region of the country. Maybe you do some more marketing over there. So might be some useful information to be gathered from web forms and other information that they submit. And the most important for us today, they can be integrated with other systems in real time. So FileMaker, just to name an example. Maria, do you have the poll results for us today?
I do. So it looks like about 60% of people are saying no, they don't have a web form integrated with their FileMaker system. So that's great that you're here today because you're going to learn a lot about best practices, tips and tricks, how to do that, what might be the best choice for you. So that is awesome.
All right. Great segue. If you are looking to implement web forms into your FileMaker applications, I'm looking at you, the 60% there. Uh, Feel free to contact us at dvservice.com and we can help you out. All right, moving on. Web forms and FileMaker. So FileMaker has a lot of options when it comes to web forms. Like I said, we're going to be covering those major 4 options and what they are, and what is going to be the most suited to your needs and goals. FileMaker most recently in version 21.1 that came out maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, just removed the limit for the FileMaker data API. So it's actually much easier to integrate. You don't have to worry about OData or data API limits anymore. So it is actually much easier to, or not as difficult to integrate with the system because you don't have to really think about data limits anymore. So that is very nice. So these are your options. FileMaker WebDirect, which just comes with the platform, FileMaker Studio, Claris Studio, rather, which we'll go over soon, custom web, and then all there at the bottom are just some of the many, many third-party offerings out there. The third-party ones, you just want to make sure which is going to be most suited for your needs. But we're going to try to cover all these today, how to implement them, and what's good and bad about each of them. All right, we have our second poll. So what type of forms do you have integrated with your applications for that 40% of that due? And hopefully, like before, we'll move on a little bit and we'll have those poll results for you shortly. Before we start talking about all the other types of integrations and how to do it and whatnot, there's going to be a best practice. The best practice is what we call a dashboard. So the idea is when someone submits a form online, you want to make sure there is someone basically back checking all that information that they submit. You don't want some prankster to just make a random request online and then it hit your order database immediately, because then you have to clean up all these random orders that things have been submitted online, and then you have this big headache. So the idea is the dashboard acts as an intermediary space. So the web submissions fall into the dashboard, and then you have the ability to kind of approve or deny their submissions or even make some adjustments to their requests or what they submitted because maybe there's a typo or maybe they forgot a field like their last name, but you know their last name because you do a lot of business with them, that sort of thing. We have an article on dashboards and what they can do in the realm of FileMaker. So if you want to go over that, there's the blog link, but we're not going to try to spend too much time on the concept of dashboards today. Maria, do you have those poll results?
I do. So it looks like about 2% of people are integrated with Claris Studio, about 30% integrated with WebDirect, about 20% integrated with a third party,
Mhm.
about 25% with a custom web form, and then about 45% no integrations.
Very interesting. I'm surprised there's some studio people in there. It's relatively new, so it's very interesting that people have that going on. All right. So moving forward, the best practice with the dashboard, I have a little demo prepared for us today. This is a little file that I spun up. It should be very simple in concept. The idea is I have these 4 types of platforms that we're going to be covering today, and I have a dashboard for each of them. The idea is this acts as a place to hold all the online submissions before it hits this other screen, which is an orders database. So you'll notice right now, I don't have anything in the orders database. It just has first name, last name, the date submitted, and the source and description. But there's nothing in here right now because I haven't approved anything. But the idea is once you get these submissions, so I have these 2 submissions hypothetically, and I read through all this information, I notice, oh, last name is spelt wrong. I correct it, and then I hit approve. And then upon approval, it actually does hit your orders database. And you'll notice my fixing of the typo has been remedied. And then you can move on with your actual workflow in regards to orders in this hypothetical. Um, on the other side of that coin, if you have a submission that is not good or clearly just incorrect, maybe a duplicate, that sort of stuff can happen. Then you just deny it, and the idea is it falls off the dashboard and it doesn't hit your orders database. So you just basically an ignore button. But that's the best practice. Typically, just basically cleans up all the data entry, makes sure no malicious information actually hits your real databases, and it just kind of hits this intermediary instead. All right. So with that out of the way, we're going to start going into the 4 major food groups or submitting of forms. So FileMaker WebDirect. FileMaker WebDirect is natively part of the Claris FileMaker suite. So it comes with FileMaker. If you have FileMaker, you have access to it. It's basically a web rendered version of your FileMaker layouts. So I have this little acronym here, WYSIWYG. It's what you see is what you get. So you just need to make sure that you are aware of FileMaker WebDirect's limitations. Basically, there's some things that um, it's not great at doing, and some functions don't work super well on that platform. So you just kind of need to be aware that there are some limitations there and what they are uh, and what they can offer for you. The pros is it's very customizable. If you're a FileMaker developer and have any sort of experience in FileMaker, it kind of works the same way. You just move things to the layout, add fields to a layout. You know, it's very intuitive if you're a FileMaker developer. It's good for internal deployments. So if you're not going outside the network, people need an account to log in. That's very easy and is all part of the single platform. Some cons, you might have to think about licensing external people. So if it needs to be outward facing to the web, do you need to have concurrent licensing? How are you going to handle accounts? That sort of thing. Kind of heavy in computing power. So if a lot of people are hitting this WebDirect page, might have some implications on the server that you might want to consider. And like I mentioned earlier, FileMaker WebDirect is missing some basic client features, so you just also need to take that into consideration. That being said, I have a little demo for you. So this is a little FileMaker WebDirect page that I have spun up. that is basically a web form. So the idea is I have this little page. It is accessible via link, so long as someone has an account at the moment. And I have these four major fields that I'm going to be using over and over that are required. So you'll notice I added this little red star here. I have a little submit button. So if I try to submit, I get this little error that is a FileMaker script, but rendered on WebDirect. So if I follow this to its logical conclusion, that's one word, and hit submit, I have now submitted the form. What's nice about WebDirect is you can just do a go-to layout at the end for a thank you page, and it's really nice and easy to throw together. And then from there, oops, you'll notice it pop into the dashboard. You might have to, yeah, do that little refresh there. So this is really easy. It's just a script that basically makes a new record in this intermediary table. And then you have your standard approve deny that I showed before. I'm going to approve this. And then you'll notice it hit the dashboard or hit the orders database. So very simple. WebDirect it is great if you're, acclimated to the FileMaker platform and don't want to really learn these other ways of integrating. So if you're very fond of the native tool set, that's what FileMaker WebDirect is for. If you don't do any external deployments either, it's pretty good at that as well. So Claris Studio, this is probably the biggest enigma to the people. Some of you may have never even heard of it, but it is available through what's called the Claris Platform Bundle. So the Claris Platform Bundle is a bundle offered with Claris FileMaker, Claris Studio, which is this product, and Claris Connect. It's a three-piece bundle that's available online. So it doesn't come directly with Claris FileMaker. You have to get the specific bundle, but it does come with the other goodies as well. So it has a forms feature, which we're going to be leveraging today, and other things as well, but we're mostly concerned about the forms. And it basically attaches itself to FileMaker as an external data source. So it basically acts as an ODBC shadow table, good old ESS stuff for those that know what that means. But the pros is it's very, very easy to implement and quick to release and is native to the platform. So if you're thinking about speed and getting stuff ready really quickly, it is really good at that. In fact, I'm going to be showing you guys start to finish how to do that. Cons, it's a very new product and they're still kind of fleshing it out. So they're still working on some things and is not very good at doing data-driven stuff at the moment. So if you want like a value list loaded from FileMaker or, some conditional, hey, if you did this in FileMaker, do that. It doesn't really have that at the moment. It really is just a rudimentary form. But hopefully I can show you off how that works. So Claris Studio, for those that have never seen it before, this is what the hub looks like. This is what you get when you log in. But what we're going to be doing for this demo today is basically showing you how to set up one of those forms, lickety split. So from here, oh, I got to log back in, I think. All right, sorry about that. I'm going to make a new spreadsheet first. I think you can jump straight into the form, but I like doing the spreadsheet first just because it's kind of easier to understand that way. But once you have created a spreadsheet, from here, this basically acts as the equivalent of a Google Sheet or Excel. You can add fields, which are going to be columns here in this case. So I have a text field. I'm going to add maybe a number field, let's say. And then these rows are the data. So if I want to say hello, and then for the number, I can do 1. And this is basically how you add data into the spreadsheet. So from here, what you can do is you can also make a form, which is what we're interested in today. And I'm going to say webinar demo form. And what you can do is choose the sheet that we just made. So the idea is when they submit things online through this form that we're about to make, it just hits that spreadsheet. So what's super nice is it already makes this flow for you, and it'll make all the entry fields based on the field you set up in the spreadsheet. So you'll notice that the text and number field already is put on the layout. You can rearrange stuff, make it look better if you want. Obviously, there's a lot of customizability here to a certain extent, but that's the general idea. It sets the form, and it even does like a thank you page. It'll show you all your responses. But if you, let's say we're ready to go live, all you do is enable sharing, you copy the link, Claris generates this like link page for you, and it's already online, just like that. So I'm going to do a new submission. It even makes a thank you page for you, which you can customize as well. But that's really the gist. And then from there, the idea is we go back to the spreadsheet and refresh. You'll see my new submission entered into this page. So from there, the question is, how do you get that data into FileMaker? And that is also very easy. In the Manage Database window, if you offer to make a new TO and select your Claris Studio data source, you'll notice that that new spreadsheet 5 is the one we just made, becomes an option. So I'm going to add it as a new TO here. And then if I open this layout that gets made alongside this TO, you'll see that the data we submitted is now accessible. So it's really that easy. It is very quick. The only thing you need to be aware of is you need to be signed in with your Claris ID, that you are signed in on Claris Studio in your FileMaker solution. That's how it gains access to your Claris Studio submissions. And I think you need to be above a certain version. I believe FileMaker 20 or newer needs to be installed in order for this to work. But that's the general idea. And this shadow table that it is connected to basically acts as your intermediary. So I have this form set up prior to this. So context the same. If I submit the form, it falls into that ESS table. And then from there, I can do the same old approve or deny if there's anything to fix. And it ends up as a new order. So that's Claris Studio. It's super fast to implement, super slick. So if you're looking for something quick to deploy, that is a great answer to that. All right, so let's cover the third option, online third-party options. So third parties are great because there's a huge variety to go over what you can use to implement. There's many ways to even integrate with, on the FileMaker side, RESTful API. You can use server schedules to download submissions, webhooks, which is our recommendation, though ironically the hardest to implement. And the pros are there's a platform. So let's say SurveyMonkey, JotForm, those big hitters, they already have a lot invested into the platform. So if you want like metrics or reports based on what is happening on all the survey submissions, that's probably all built in already. Lots of customizability, you know, they're focused on this one thing. So they're really strong in that department. Cons, every platform is different. So you might like lock into a certain platform, but it doesn't exactly meet your needs. So you just need to reevaluate which ones are going to be the best for you. And choice paralysis, there's so many. On that note, I do want to go over this website. This website is called G2. G2 is basically a site that lets you review and search for software. And they have a basic page called Best Online Form Builders. So there's 335 listings. So there's a lot to go over. You'll notice some familiar faces, JotForm, ActiveCampaign, SurveyMonkey. But at the very bottom here, it has this very interesting graph where it's market presence against satisfaction. And it basically places all these 335, I think they've omitted a couple on this graph, and you can kind of see the industry leaders up here in the top right, and then the more niche platforms over here, right? So the idea is some things are more going to be generic kind of products that can kind of fit whatever. And then there's going to be things that are more suited to a specific kind of need. For example, if I'm asking for a customer service survey, I probably wouldn't use Adobe Acrobat Sign. That's probably more for e-signature kind of platform, different kind of form. So this graph is very interesting. I recommend checking it out. It's very cool. You can also look at these individual form options and what works best for you. So I have, unfortunately, only one third-party form to show today. We would be talking all day if I did all 335 of them. So what I have prepared is ActiveCampaign. For those that are unfamiliar, ActiveCampaign is a marketing platform, collects a bunch of contacts. You can have some automations that are like email contacts if they are on a certain list, and basically it's mostly for marketing. But they also have a form if you want to be subscribed to an email list. So I made this little form real quick. I'm going to fill this out. Submit. It works the same way. And the most interesting thing about this is I have something set up called a webhook. So a webhook, for the uninitiated, is basically I'm telling the third-party service, ActiveCampaign, if they offer this as an option, to say upon the certain event's completion. So this event I'm saying is when a form is submitted, please send the data to this specified location. So I'm saying when a form is submitted, please send the data to this file that I have set up. So I have this ActiveCampaign pointing to the file directly and a webhook set up. A webhook requires some PHP knowledge. But it does make sure the submission shows up immediately. So there's no time wasted. It automatically shows up. Some alternative option is I have a script set up here that basically pulls using their REST API any new submissions. So I submitted a form earlier before this meeting. So let's see if it shows up. So you'll notice it shows up, but you don't have that benefit of it showing up immediately. So you kind of need to be aware that there are different ways to get data from third party. We typically recommend the webhook the most, but it is a little more taxing to implement. I think our SurveyMonkey article on our website basically goes over it in pretty good depth. So if you want to learn how to do all that PHP jazz, host that somewhere on a website, and then grab the data, that's pretty easy. I recommend reading that. Otherwise, when downloading for the form, I just have this really simple script. This is the API, some curl options sent with, and then I just loop through all the responses and create new records. The downside of the third party, however, is if you integrate with one platform and choose to change the platform. So let's say I go from ActiveCampaign to SurveyMonkey, all the code that you probably wrote is not going to be useful. Every platform's API is different to varying degrees, some really different, some not by much. But you need to be aware that you just can't copy paste code and make it work between every API. It's unfortunately not that simple. So basically, the lesson there is at the very beginning, have a good idea of which one you want to qualify all the platforms, and hopefully you make the good choice and you don't have to write that code again. I'm going to deny this and approve this. From there, you'll see hopefully our fourth order. But yeah, there it is. Third-party platforms. Basically, all the work's already been done. You just got to build the form. All right. And oh, here's a little plug. We've done a lot of articles over the years on these third-party platforms. So if you want to learn more about how to integrate a unique platform with your FileMaker solution, these are just some of the ones we've done. I'm sure there's a lot more. They are all on our blog. So if you're specifically looking to integrate with SurveyMonkey, specifically looking to integrate with JotForms, that's all on there. Just check it out when you have a chance. So the last one we have, custom web page. This is basically building a custom site or a page on a site that is a form. With regards to what it can do, the sky is kind of the limit. Basically whatever HTML, CSS, and JavaScript can do, that's what your web form can do. So it's most suited to your needs. You can customize it to no end, but you need to make sure the best way probably to get that data information into your FileMaker solution is the FileMaker Data API. So you just need to make sure that you have a good way of communicating between your web page and the Data API. Otherwise, you're going to have to get creative with other ways of integrating. So pros can basically do anything. It's really customizable. There's like no restrictions. But the cons is very difficult to implement because it's all custom and you're kind of building it to suit your individual needs. There's a time element to building all that, especially more complex ones, and it could be very costly to make. So not just resources, not just time, but money, just because everything is custom. So for this demo right here, I have built a very small web app that's just an online form. I'm not going to go over how to build an entire web app from scratch because that's going to take a long time. But basically, I have some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that will grab the form submissions from these fields. Submission, let's do. And submit it into FileMaker. And you'll notice I have it running locally for the time being. So I have this little confirmation dialog. I didn't do anything too crazy, just for the sake of showing. But this works like all the others. It should show up immediately via the FileMaker Data API, and then you have your standard approve or deny feature. It shows up. So I can briefly go over this, but the idea is I just have this basic web page. I have some HTML with the inputs for all the fields. I have the submit button over here. And the idea is I have also some like validation, make sure to enter first name, make sure to enter last name, all that good stuff. And then I have a request that basically says once all the data is filled in, send it via the data API to transfer that data into FileMaker. And then it runs a script in FileMaker, a really simple one that just makes a record in the temp table via the data API, grabs all the parameters, so that sets them into fields, and that basically acts as your intermediary table that I used over here. It is a little complicated. I think we also have another article on how to do a custom web on integrating with the FileMaker platform. So if you want to learn more on that end, I think that is also available. All right. So little plug at the end. If you're ready to take your web forms to the next level and integrating with the FileMaker platform, feel free to contact us at dbservices.com. And last little thing, we're going to slowly land the plane now. If or we have other divisions here at DB Services, not just limited to the FileMaker platform. We also have a Salesforce and a web division. So we're not just Claris certified, we're also Salesforce, a Salesforce partner and an AWS partner. So if you're interested in working or have these other things that you work with, that is also in our tech stack. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. A couple of things before we go into the Q&A session. Our upcoming webinar in March will be on building effective web portals with Claris FileMaker. So please join us for that. You can register by scanning that QR code that's on the screen, and we'll go ahead and leave it up during the Q&A in case anyone misses that and wants to register. So let's go ahead with Q&A. If I know I'm seeing some people still submitting stuff, so we will get to as many as we can. It's looking like we've got about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, so we should be able to get to all of the questions. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question I have is, which third-party form should I choose?
It's a loaded question. Basically, my recommendation is going to the site and kind of this G2 site, and maybe I'll put this in the chat, or maybe I'll give it to you to put in the chat.
I put it in the chat earlier, but I can go ahead and throw it in there again.
Okay, perfect. Basically, it really depends on what you're trying to use the web form for. If you're like collecting credit card information for like a payment, then it's got to be Stripe or Square or one of those other third-party credit card processors. If you're doing like a customer survey kind of thing, then I think you're good to be more generic and thinking maybe SurveyMonkey or JotForm. So it really depends. What are you using the form for? Maybe browse through what what G2 kind of has listed, and yeah, try to figure out what's going to work best for you. But yeah, if it's most generic, then I would look at maybe SurveyMonkey, JotForm, that sort of thing.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. How do I get Claris Studio?
Claris Studio. So I might have alluded to this at the very beginning, but it's part of what's called the Claris Platform Bundle. I actually have the tab open. But on the Claris store page, there's this offering available. So it's not your just standard, I'm only getting FileMaker package. It's a bundle. You get Claris Studio, you get Claris Pro, and you get Claris FileMaker and Claris Connect. So Studio is the one that we were going over earlier, but it's part of this bundle. I don't think it gets offered individually. You kind of have to get it in this package, but that is where you get it.
Cool. Okay. Do I need to be using a file hosted on FM Cloud in order to use Claris Studio?
That's a good question. Surprisingly, no. You'd think that because you're authenticating with a Claris ID, to get in, get access to the Claris Studio information, you'd think you'd have to also be on an FM Cloud or FM Cloud Essentials hosted file, but it actually works on a local file as well, or any other server, so long as the client you are logged in with is logged into the Claris ID associated with the Claris Studio account. So yeah, it is actually very accessible. You don't have to be on cloud. Just make sure you're logged in. Otherwise, you can't access the data source.
Okay. And I think I did see another question that might be similar to that come
Mhm.
in. So I'll just go ahead and skip to that one and let me know if you just answered this. For clarity, using Claris Studio Web Forms requires any user to have a Claris account.
So any user that wants to access that specific data source. So in the example I had with the Claris Studio page, basically, if there's one person approving the dashboard and only one person, only that person would need access. And then once it hits the ordered database, you kind of don't care, right? But yes, everyone that wants to view the submissions would need to have a Claris ID or signed in on the same one, uh, at least.
Okay. Let's see here. With JotForm, could you send and receive data from FileMaker?
Send and receive data from FileMaker. You can definitely receive, well, you can receive information from JotForm. And regarding sending information to JotForm, that would be kind of using their REST API. So the answer is yes. It's kind of the what JotForm has available as options. I don't know the ins and out of the JotForm REST API, but I assume it has the ability to probably make a survey or um, a web form through FileMaker if you really wanted to. Yeah, but I would imagine it'd be easiest just to make the form on JotForm and then send the information to FileMaker. But it should be possible. You just have to read up on the documentation on what JotForm specifically themselves allows.
Okay. Um, okay. What are the basic features missing with WebDirect?
WebDirect, so you just need to be aware of what things are and not supported on WebDirect. So for example, trying to think of a good example. So stacking objects, for example, sometimes in FileMaker, if you want to show and hide certain things based on hide condition, so you'll have two stacked objects, maybe a button that says approve or deny, like I had earlier. So if something is ready to move on in its workflow, you can approve it. If it's not ready, you can deny it, that sort of thing. In FileMaker, you can just stack the objects, and that's easy. You just have a hide condition that flips back and forth. Whereas in WebDirect, that is not possible. So it just doesn't work out as the way you want it to. So you kind of got to work around that. And there's certain like script steps. So this is more technical side, but there's some script steps that you can't use or is partially functionable. So you just kind of need to be aware of what the limitations are. I think the let's see, let's just pick a random script step. The help page, the help center is going to be your best friend here because there's this little box that tells you, I think this is the 16 one, that tells you what is supported and what is not. So if you're a developer and you're like, does insert file work on WebDirect, then it'll tell you, oh, it's partially supported. Then you have to kind of like dig into the notes a little bit and see, oh, FileMaker WebDirect does not support the dialog option. So if you're using this, just, You need to be aware of what is and what's not supported, but we could talk for hours. There's a lot to go over.
Okay, great. Um, okay, can you integrate FileMaker with Google Forms?
Yeah. So Google Forms is one of the third parties. I would be surprised if it wasn't listed in here at all. Um, but it's the Google Suite. They're known for letting you integrate with a bunch of platforms. So I'd be very surprised if Google Forms wouldn't have that option available to you.
Yeah, I know on our blog we have a lot of Google integration articles. I we don't specifically have Google Forms, um, but I know we do have a lot of other Google integrations. So, um, okay. Can you clarify the comment about being logged into your Claris ID with FileMaker for the Studio integration?
Yes, of course. So in these newer versions of FileMaker, you'll have this option to sign in or sign out of your Claris ID. So when you sign up for Claris Studio, you'll have to make a Claris ID account. It's Claris's own, login account. You also need the same account for if you're hosted on cloud, for example. But if you let's say I sign out, you have by default this little option to log in the file menu, at least for Mac. I think Windows should be in the same spot. And then from there, you just basically log in. And then you gain access to the data. So you just need to be aware that that login page is kind of like in here, this little menu right here. I think it's also in the startup screen of FileMaker as well. You'll get this like little blue button that says sign into Claris ID. So you can get in that way. But yeah, that's how you sign in, and that's how you get access to the studio.
Okay. Um, could third-party forms get data from FileMaker to use for its logic and vice versa?
Um, it might depend on, it's going to depend on the individual platform. I think more thought leaders like Jotform and SurveyMonkey might have that sort of option. But you're saying if your name is like Andrew, use this form instead of that form, that might be a little more difficult because it's kind of a two-step process. If person does this, read your FileMaker file, send back a response, then have some sort of a differing output. So I think it's going to be platform specific. I know that's going to be a lot of my answers for the third party ones, unfortunately, but I'd be surprised if there were a lot of platforms that did offer something like that. Maybe SurveyMonkey, maybe Jotform. A lot of the smaller ones, I kind of doubt.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, could I use Zapier for some of these integrations?
Yeah, of course. I don't see why not. You can basically use Zapier as your like intermediary. Grab response from SurveyMonkey, send it to FileMaker. So if you're not as like you know tech savvy with all the like scripting and PHP webhooks and all that, Zapier is a good way to basically make that a little more low codey and easier to implement. Claris Connect, also similar thing, I think would be a good option for that sort of thing.
Awesome. Okay. Um, let's see. Another Google Forms. Would Google Forms be the same integration headache as a custom website?
No, I don't think so. It's going to be, so Google Forms is going to be one of the third-party ones. So it's really just up to how difficult it is to read their REST API documentation and what red tape it has, if any. But I'd say no, it'd be in the third party category, so it shouldn't be as difficult as the full on custom.
Okay. Um, in the case of integration with third-party web forms, you didn't mention using ESS. What are the pros and cons there?
ESS, like a shadow table. Um, if you're saying you're collecting ODBC information from a third party data source, you can do it. That's basically what Claris Studio is. It collects data, puts it in this spreadsheet or its own little database, and reading it via ODBC or ESS. Like that's all. That's fine. That's another way of implementing it. Um, yeah, I don't see any horrible cons there. Yeah, that should be totally fine.
Okay. Um, if I have a Claris FileMaker license, is Claris Studio automatically included?
Uh, no, I think the bundle, you need the bundle to get access to Studio. It is not included with your default like normal FileMaker, Claris FileMaker licensing.
Yeah, and I did send a link to the bundle earlier in the chat. Let me find it and resend it here.
Uh,
There we
yeah,
go.
it'd be
In
this
case
page.
you want to take a look at that. Um, okay, we've got a few more here. Can Claris Studio connect to a FileMaker server that is hosted internally and not public facing?
Connect to a FileMaker server that is internal facing. So if you're trying to access the data on server, I think it should work so long as you are signed in via the Claris ID account on the server machine, even if it's not external facing. Yes, in theory, it should be possible. I've not played with that to that ability, but I don't see why it would not work.
Okay. Um, is Claris Connect of any use for implementing web form submissions for varied third-party form solutions?
Yeah, so that goes back to the Zapier question. Basically, you can use Claris Connect as a way to like kind of group everything together. You can also do it for like if you're having multiple forms, might be interesting. Like if you're collecting some stuff from SurveyMonkey, you're collecting some stuff from JotForm, you can just have it all be in the Claris Connect space and submit it into the FileMaker app one way. So if you want to consolidate all that, then yeah, Claris Connect or Zapier would be great options, I think.
Okay. Um, do Claris Studio users count towards concurrent connections or standard licensed users, or are they open for public use?
Um, that's a very good question. Sorry, can you
Yeah,
read
I
that
was gonna
again?
say, I'm not sure. This seems like a licensing question, so I don't know. We may have to follow up with you offline on this one. Do Claris Studio users count towards concurrent connections? Maybe it's supposed to say concurrent connect or standard licensed users, or
I
are they
don't,
open for public use?
I don't think they would be, but yeah, we might have to reach out to you offline for a more specific answer.
Okay.
Apologies.
Um, yeah, I'll save that one. Um, okay. With Claris Studio, I struggle to know what to do with the forms I have processed. Do you delete the spreadsheet data from Studio, or do you have a recommendation to hide them?
Yes, so this is actually what I did in the web file or in the file I prepared. So I have this script here that's called approve or reject. This is those two buttons I was hitting, approve or reject on the side over there. And all it does is based on if they hit the button it hits this flag called is processed. So is processed is just a number field that's a 1 or empty. So if it's been processed, it falls off the dashboard. So whether you approve it or deny it, it doesn't matter. It always falls off the dashboard. But the idea is you don't actually delete the data. It just is the illusion of being gone. And that's because for whatever reason, if you lose the data in your FileMaker database, you can at least pull it back out of Claris Studio. So if you need this information that you lost for whatever reason, you just go back to the spreadsheet and grab that information back. And you can even mark it unprocessed again, and it'll show back up is the general idea. And then you can just approve or deny it. But yeah, I recommend a flag is the short answer.
Great. Okay, and then I think this is the last one I have in here. Can you recap how to do this in WebDirect?
Oh, yeah. So what I did in this app is I just made 2 layouts. It's called the form and the thank you page. So I just make two layouts. The submit button just makes a record and then saves all the information they entered and then goes to the thank you screen. But the general idea is you need to enable some settings on FileMaker server to enable WebDirect. And then from there, it will give you a URL of how to display this form or this FileMaker app online. And you just have to open the file from there. I have some code basically in the startup script here that just says if system platform. So this is checking what platform they are on. So when I log in and I'm on WebDirect, I have it point to that specific page, the WebDirect form page. So that way, when I log in via WebDirect, so this is the kind of the landing screen where you see all your FileMaker apps hosted on the server. So when you log in now, this account, it just automatically lands you on this page. So you just there's some tricks there. Enable WebDirect on the server, have some sort of plan when someone logs in to take them to a specific layout. And really that's it. Have some WebDirect specific layouts maybe. Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you very much for all your questions. Everyone, thanks for joining us today. And a huge thank you to Andrew for sharing all of his expertise with us today. If you have any further questions about integrating web forms or you want assistance with that, please contact us at dbservices.com. We're more than happy to help. And thank you again and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you.